Let's go on to our next point then, which is from, excuse me, Alan. Welcome. Now, you really have got a huge experience of orchestral recording. I mean, how many years would you care to mention?
36.
Yeah.
36.
Yeah. And you've worked with amazing game composers, amazing film composers. You've really been there and bought the T-shirt. So this point here, budgeting, think very carefully and take advice. What words of wisdom do you have for us?
Well, there's quite a few words of wisdom because this is the starting point. Once you've been given the gig, you think, great, I'm going to write a score. And then the company says, right, I'm going to give you some money to use an orchestra. Fantastic. Now, where do you start from there? They say, well, how much do you want? So if you've got no idea, and it is a difficult thing to actually to just put into a few words, but I'll give you a few pointers. The very first step is don't be afraid to ask for what you want. Take advice, first of all, if you're not that experienced in all this sort of thing. It's very hard asking for money because they don't want to give you very much. Simple as that. They want to keep it to a bare minimum. But the thing is, you've got to find out exactly what's you're going to be your minimum. So talk with people, take advice from other people that have done this. Sorry, I'm popping here. To find out exactly what sort of figure you want to put to them. I always suggest that you budget higher than what you need, then you can come down. It's like selling your car. If you want £500, you ask 600. And you might compromise at 550 and you're both winners. So budget higher than what you need and then negotiate after that. I say take advice before you even start this process and especially before you finalise the final figure, because it's almost impossible to get money later on. I can guarantee that, and I'm sure we've all had those experiences. So that's that. Certain things you have to budget for. You're probably going to need an orchestrator or arranger. Most of the arranging you'll probably do yourself, so it's more orchestrating, but they're sort of one of the same sort of species, really, orchestrator, arranger. A conductor, possibly. Music preparation, that's already been mentioned. Now don't underestimate the importance of this. Don't think, oh, it's just a question of just pressing go or print and all the parts come zooming out of your printer, all in the right order, with all the right notes on it, so that all the musicians can read it easily. It doesn't work that way. It takes time. It's a labor-intensive job, music preparation, and you must get somebody that's used to doing it to do it properly. So that's really, really important. You need time for that too. So don't just the night before say to your music preparation person, right, here's all the files, I need the stuff on the stand at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. It won't happen, depending how much it is, how much there is, of course. So the other thing is the music preparation person or the process will usually be organised by your orchestrator anyway, so he or she will probably be experienced in that. Other things, musicians, obviously you need those if you've got an orchestra. Musicians, singers, they are one of the same thing, by the way. We don't just say musicians and singers, or singers, it's musicians, singers, as opposed to instrumentalists. Specialist players, for a lot of things we've done, we've used sort of medieval flutes and all sorts of weird and wonderful stringed instruments and cembalons and that kind of thing. You need specialist players for that. So you've got to factor that in. Sound engineer, you're going to need one of those. They don't always come with the studio, and very often it's your choice. And one of the things I'm going to mention later on is relationships. A lot of this is, the success of a lot of these processes is to do with relationships. So you need to develop those as you go along. Studio, obviously you're going to need a studio and the equipment, editing, mixing, travel, etc., depending where you're going to record. Music supervisor, possibly, but you're probably definitely going to need some kind of music management, or a fixer, as they call them. Okay, so that's sort of a very short list of things you're going to need. So you need to budget for all of that separately, and then you put a total, and then you increase it. And then you put in a contingency just in case. Yeah. And of course, at the end of that, don't forget your own fee, because that's quite an important part of it. So you need to factor that in as well. One thing I'm often asked is how much time we're going to need to record so many minutes of music. A lot depends on that. It depends on the nature of the music, size of the orchestra, how much money you've got, where you're recording, all that sort of thing. In London, there's a combined use rate for which you can actually record 8 minutes of music per hour. So if you've got a 3-hour session, you can record up to 24 minutes of music. You can record more, but it's what you use at the end of it, after the mix, all that kind of thing. Obviously, these days, where we're not dependent on tape anymore, you just record everything. Every note will be digitized. So it's what you use at the end of it. So 8 minutes per hour. I work a lot in Europe, and for most places, there's no restriction. But it depends, again, how picky you are, how picky the director is, the audio director or whatever, and again, how difficult the music is. So again, ask advice on that. And usually, your orchestrator will be able to advise on that. Number of cues, all that sort of thing comes into it. The number of minutes doesn't necessarily dictate how much time you're going to use for recording. It's very often the number of cues. Because each cue is a separate start and a stop. I advise on using long Pro Tools sessions rather than, for instance, with the last Fable game we did, Legends, there were 350 orchestral cues. Now, you imagine 350 separate Pro Tools sessions, each taking, even if it's just 15 seconds or 20 seconds to set the next one up. You think how much time you're wasting in the studio, musicians sitting there waiting for the track to start. So I think for something like 90 minutes, 100 minutes of the full cues, we used seven Pro Tools sessions, and the bar numbers went from 1 right up to sort of 1,000 and something. So you just stop the Pro Tools and then start again. It's an easy way to do it. You don't have to spin tapes backwards and forwards now. But it's setting up the Pro Tools sessions in the studio that takes a bit of time, not a lot, but collectively. We were talking about transitions. You were talking about transitions just now. We used a lot of those in Fable Legends. There were actually 220 separate transitions going from good to evil, evil to good, joyful to sad, win to lose, major to minor, all sorts of things. So each track had probably 8, 9, 10 different transitions. All had to be recorded separately, but within the same Pro Tools session. That saved a lot of time. So if you want to, obviously these are just bullet points. Obviously if you want to talk about anything later, just come and see me later, or there's question time afterwards as well anyway. So, but that's it for now.
Yeah, thanks, Alan. And you said right at the beginning of that, take advice. So who are you going to go to for that advice?
Well, generally, I think if you get I'll talk about orchestrators a bit later on, but you need somebody that's experienced, and they would have done all this. And generally, they can do business management as well and budget planning. I've done all that for composers, and it takes a lot of their plate. You composers, you just want to write the music. You don't want all the administration that goes with it. You just want to sit down and be creative. All the mundane stuff, people like myself can take care of that. So again, just take advice probably from your orchestrator and or the fixer, and also the sound engineer. They're in the studio every day. They do thousands of projects in a year. So they're the people to ask advice from.
Brilliant. Thank you.